Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order at 9 o'clock, and the proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Thank you. Mayor Clarkson, are you present?
I am.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Present, yes.
Councillor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Lambshead?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer.
Present.
Steve Brockbank, Director of Emergency Services.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Ann Ruth, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Chelsea Carpenter, Waste Public Works Coordinator.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services Clerk, is present.
Thank you. I'm going to remind council members of their obligation to declare any pecuniary interest that they notice at this time or at any time into the future. We need a motion to approve the agenda. Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Motion has carried. Now we're going to start with our delegations, but before we do that, I want to thank everybody who has made application here. With the exception of a couple, all of these applications make up the day-to-day work of volunteers in this community. So as we decide whether or not what they're asking for is something that we can afford, we need to consider the fact that these people are the people in the background that make our municipality what it is. So I think myself and council all recognize the validity of these people and give them our heartfelt thanks for the jobs that they do. Now, if we could start with the first delegation, which is Stephanie, the CEO from Public Library. Her last name is McPherson. I'll do this because there's probably people on here who don't know. And she's going to present the 2022 library budget requests. Please unmute your audio and or share your camera and make a presentation, Stephanie.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council. Just thank you very much for taking the time to hear about the library's proposed 2022 budget. Despite the challenges that the library has faced in 2021, the staff have continued to adapt to the changing circumstances and provide excellent service to our community. Since the spring of 2020, the library has shifted our services to be able to provide staff to be able to provide safe and accessible access for our patrons through different models. The ideal model has been a combination of a reduced capacity and offering curbside pickup so that everyone feels safe when coming to the library. In addition to the physical materials available at the library, we continue to expand our digital collection. The use of ebooks and audiobooks by our patrons have increased by 55% since 2019. This year, the library is offering access to digital periodicals and magazines in addition to the ebooks and audiobooks. The library has adapted the delivery of programs as well by offering grab and go activities for kids to complete at home. This service has been such a success that we will continue to offer it even after regular programming resumes. We are currently applying for grants to purchase a new Cricut for the library to help make new crafts and activities more efficiently. In partnership with the Cavendish Community Center, the library was able to resume the youth group at the end of 2021 by offering outdoor programs. And we hope that we can resume the youth group again soon. To help families with the changing dynamic of virtual learning, the library has subscribed to new databases, which provide reliable resources for students to assist with homework and projects. As the computers at both branches have become outdated, we have budgeted to replace the remaining computers so that the students and the community can access these new research tools. Unfortunately, with the current number of active COVID cases in Peterborough County, the Goodbye Room has not been able to open. The space has been prepared so that it is ready to resume operations when it is safer for the volunteers and for the community. The library is asking the municipality for an increase of 3% in 2022 to help us overcome the fundraising challenges that the uncertainty of the pandemic has caused. This increase will allow us to continue to provide the community with excellent service. On behalf of the library staff, I would like to thank Council for your continued support.
Thank you. Well said. You do a good job.
Thank you.
Comments from council? Deputy Mayor Windover.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephanie, for all the hard work you do and all your staff there. It's really great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Franson.
Yeah, I'd also like to compliment the staff. I've never met a friendlier staff from the library. I think they do an amazing job. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to make a motion at this time? Deputy Mayor Windover.
Yes, I'll make the motion to accept it.
Okay, Councillor
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yep.
Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, I would make the motion to receive the presentation. Also to thank the library staff for adjusting and adapting so many times to the changing restrictions that we have been under. And also, I know Stephanie gave her preamble. I'm not sure if you wanted to go through the actual slides that we have, Stephanie, or just leave those for us to read.
Sure. You can see I put out where we were, what new costs that we have had. And unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we cannot rely on having our annual fundraiser or even the goodbye room. We had hoped to open it earlier this month. And so we're trying not to anticipate having more revenue than we can. And we're also trying to limit the cash that we receive at the library. We're asking for a little bit of an increase in ebooks because there's such a high demand for those and the audiobooks. We're also replacing the blinds in the Buckhorn branch so that they are safer for the public. Our blinds have the long strings, and especially in the children's section that can be dangerous. And so we've actually just replaced the ones with some money we had from last year, and we would just like to replace the blinds in the back of the library as well. And of course, with the rising cost of propane, we need to accommodate that, and just the staffing cost, which is always the most expensive part of running anything. In order to accommodate these increases, we have slightly decreased our computer cost. We replaced half of them last year, and so hopefully we'll be able to replace the rest of them this year. Our computer maintenance cost decreased. We've also decreased the number of DVDs that we'll purchase because people have more streaming services now, and so the DVD circulation has decreased a little bit, and also decreased a little bit in the staff training. And then that's just the increase that we're looking for, please.
So
And a
we
pretty picture of our library.
So we have a motion on the floor, and do we have a seconder for that motion? Because Carol's was to receive, which is different than what Ron's was.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to Councillor Lambshead?
I'll receive, yeah, motion to, I'll second that, yeah.
Okay. Carol, do you want to withdraw yours or? Okay, I'm just going to call this to a vote. All in favor? That motion is carried.
Jesse?
Jesse.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, we typically also approve the library levy, and this year it's in the amount of $239,590. So if Donna agrees that this is the proper way forward, I think we're also looking for a resolution to approve the levy.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you, Jesse.
Okay, Councillor Franson.
Yep. I'd like to approve the levy.
Okay, and the seconded would be Councillor Armstrong. Is there comment? Carol, comment?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor? Motion is carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Now, Jesse, is it true that there's going to be kind of a live-eye that's going to kind of keep track of the money that we distribute? Is Ann doing that?
Yep.
Okay. We'll now have a presentation from Mark. Matt, I'm not going to do this. He can do this. Chief Administrative Officer for Kawartha Region Conservation Authority to present the Kawartha Conservation 2022 preliminary budget. Please unmute your audio and or share your camera and make your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't like to do it either. It's sometimes a very long name, and sometimes I mess it up myself. But I'll do my best. It's Mark Markowski, Kawartha Conservation. For here, very happy to be here.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we have our budget presentation here before you. And I'd just like to recognize yourself, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Windover, and members of council. And thank you for the opportunity to present our budget to you, our 2022. I would also like to recognize Deputy Mayor Windover as your representative on our board. I've said this before, but I think we have a very strong board. I think the strongest we've seen in a long time. And your representative, Ron, Deputy Mayor Windover, is a valuable contributor to that. So just like to thank you for that. Thanks, Ron. The next slide that we have identifies our budget process. And as you can see, we have a process that we go through with our board in order to define our budget. It was approved for circulation in November, and you would have received it probably early December at that point. So it's gone through a 30-day circulation period. And actually tomorrow the board will be going through the weighted vote process. So that would be to set the budget. The next slide, please. Our 2022 proposed budget represents a 2.5% increase in municipal levy. So across the board, it's $40,000. That results in about $1,421 for Trent Lakes, and that's due to the apportionment formulas. It's actually a little bit less for the municipality, just due to the apportionment formula that we receive from the ministry. Slide, please. Great, thank you. So our budget consists of four primary elements where municipal contributions are received, and that is through the operating levy and general benefiting projects levy that are shared amongst municipalities. And so these are the areas that our board defines as important areas to kind of continue the business. For general benefiting projects, those are ones that the board deems worthy to improve our overall kind of business processes or important projects to undertake. And then we do have two other areas, a special project levy, and that's with participating municipalities. Not all municipalities participate in those endeavors. And those, for instance, would include some geographically scoped projects like Lake Scugog, a Lake Scugog management plan, or some of the Kawartha Lakes management plans that have been undertaken. And I know in Trent Lakes, there's been ecological land classification that's been conducted before, and in Blue Canoe, for example. We also have service agreements with municipalities, and those are elements that really tie into departmental business. So they're not really part of the levy component per se, but part of departmental budgets. And so we have assisted municipalities in, for instance, climate change work, or undertaking environmental assessments for different projects that might be underway. The budget is also supported through a number of project grants. We actually support our budget. About a third of our monies are raised from external sources, and that is through projects and program grants, and also through program generated revenues. Next slide, please. So our proposed budget does include a couple of different things. Conservation Authorities Act changes, that's kind of like an undercurrent right now, where you'll see some pretty big changes as we go forward. The Conservation Authorities Act, as you know, has been modified by the province, and there is a definition. Currently, there's some definition going on around what are the mandatory programs that are under agreement with municipalities. And then the remainder are apportionment agreements with the municipality. So that work is going to continue. Really launched last year and is going to continue right through to 2024. The other component, which you heard from the library board, and no doubt you're experiencing that yourselves in pretty big fashion. Of course, we're meeting remotely, and that is an element of it, is the pandemic and sort of the surprise box that comes with it in terms of adapting and trying to run our businesses in a way that makes sense for everyone. We do see that 2022 will be similar to this previous year, however, in that we're able to accomplish everything that we need to do. So good news on that front. The next slide that we have identifies the proposed budget specific to Trent Lakes. And so we have the operating budget, as you see there, and the general benefiting projects, which are laid out. So we have overall, as you see there, an increase of about $1,400, just over. And there are two projects defined, which are the digitization of corporate records. So this is slowly working away at the records that we have and putting it into a digital format. And the primary reason why we're doing this is one of the difficulties that we have working remotely. We're already starting to transition to this, but having the records that you can actually get in an easy way really streamlines the office activities. So it really helps in terms of customer service, in terms of making sure things are moving, and eliminates a lot of time delays as well. The other project that we have is looking at the website, and this is a project continuance from the previous year. And what we're doing is we're opening up our IMS to an online platform so that clients that have permits can actually look at the status of their permits and get the information that they might be looking for. So what we're doing is there's a couple of reasons why we're looking at this. One is great customer service. So clientele can have the information. We get a lot of phone calls saying, how's my permit doing? And what stage is it in? So this gives the users themselves the ability to check. And then the other part that it does is realistically it lets our staff focus on getting the permits out. So it's pretty important work, I think, that we're doing on that front. And should be great for that community. And the next slide here, we don't have any special projects with Trent Lakes proposed at this point in time. We do have a couple of ideas that maybe we can work with you on as we move forward, but there are none identified in the budget currently, and there are no service agreements that we have either with Trent Lakes. So just moving on to a couple of highlights of activities, a little bit more specifically to your municipality. We have a number of things that we've done that hit all municipalities, and so the next slide identifies a couple of those. There's of course, the pandemic response that we've been working on, and our primary goal, of course, is to ensure compliance with the provincial direction, with health unit direction, to make sure that both our patrons and our staff are safe. And as a result, of course, with the pandemic, we've had to shift business processes, and we did a lot of adaptation in the previous year. And so this past year has really been trying to ingrain that more as a regular course of business, and creating standard operating procedures to match the way that we had adapted. And really, the pandemic has really turned our eye to resilience of our programs, because of course being a community-based organization as you are, you realize that a number of the programs and services really rely on direct to contact. So we've tried to shift everything to our online services, and we invested in our website. And thanks for supporting the website development. That's been really key to us adapting to the to the pandemic. So we've moved a lot of our resources online through forums, and really that streamlines customer service as well. And reduces delays. So we've also shifted our communication products to more of a user focused approach and self-directed. So before we were looking at it as a holding events or things like that on our time. And so we've shifted around to being resources on your time. So that's been a big shift, and so we've invested quite a bit of time to look at video content about the different things that we offer or things that everyone might be interested in. So I do have a couple of examples that are on our website actually now, which are erosion and sediment control, and those are really geared towards the development community and identify how you can actually install a straw bale or homeowners who may not know about it, or a silt fence, or a couple of different erosion measures. And those are all geared towards protecting our lakes and making sure they're free of sediment and therefore free of weeds, because phosphorus binds strongly to sediment. And our conservation authorities, actually, our conservation areas, continued very strong usage as well. We did launch a Talking Forest application as well, which is another self-directed application and has actually received national interest. So we're pretty excited about that. On the next slide, we move into a couple of business improvements that we've made. And so being in the digital age, we've tried to embrace that as best we can. So we've actually moved all our accounting online and looked at a couple of different ways in which we can provide our information online. So to me, it's really important for transparency about what we do and having that available. So we are trying to shift our thinking about that. So there's a couple examples there on how we're doing that. Certainly the low water indicators and precipitation are two elements that we're putting online and certainly important for everyone. We do have a brand new strategic plan as well. You see the vision in the graphic there, and I think that vision really speaks a lot more to what we try and do as an organization. And so we're extremely happy about that and having that direction set for the future. And thank you for your input to that. We've also done a couple of other things that are kind of interesting from a transparency standpoint. And there's a couple of checklists that were developed amongst the 36 CA collective in order to make sure that we're providing the same information to everyone. And so we've met that, and I have an example of some elements that contribute to that on the next slide. This is an example, and often permitting is a really important element for community, important for development, and important for everyone that's trying to improve their properties. So there's personal, and so we have here an example of how we do in terms of permitting performance. There's some standards that were defined for us, and those identify the response times for permitting. And you can see here that we report to our board on a monthly basis, and we achieved 98% of our permits were within the timeframes that were actually reduced by 30% a couple of years ago. So we're doing extremely well on that front. So good customer service and permitting, I think, really helps everyone recognize the work that we do and the importance of protecting properties and ultimately results in great water quality for everyone. So the last slide I have here is on some of the other things that we do. Watershed monitoring, we do flood forecasting and warning. As mentioned, the low water response was an active file last year. We did have an area that was a drought. Flooding, it wasn't the spring freshet. We had summer storms that caused a little bit of flooding in our area. And I did mention the sediment and erosion control, which actually is a special benefiting project from another municipality. But you'll see some benefits from that, as well as some other work that we're doing in terms of bubbler technology. And that is geared towards providing information for Trent Severn Waterway to have an informed framework so that they might be able to issue permits for landowners who are trying to employ this sort of technology. So lots of good work that we're doing. I'd like to thank Council for your time. And you'll be receiving an annual report soon, and certainly happy to address any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and I'm glad I don't have to do that. Do we have questions from the council? Councillor Lambshead, please.
More of a comment than a question. It's very, very nice to see that 98% of the permits were completed in that annual timeframe. That's if there was ever a complaint, it was sometimes that it took a long time to get a permit issued, but it's nice to see that. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lambshead. And that is that's one area that we've really focused in on, because we recognize that the timeframes, missing permit deadlines, or that we have them now. Before we never had the timeframes. So I think establishing the timeframes, and then and really we're trying to make sure that we make sure that those timelines are hit, because it's really respecting landowners as well, and they invest in their properties. It's important to them, and that's something that we want to respect. So. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Windover.
Yeah, I just want to thank Mark very much for all his hard work and very, very well done work, Mark. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, I just have a question about the talking forest. That really intrigues me. Is that a costly project, Mark, or is there any information that you could send off to the municipality that we could possibly look into it for our Parks and Recreation?
Yes, absolutely, Councillor Franzen. It is a very interesting project. I think if I remember right, the startup was around $20,000 to get it going, but we were the first to do it as well. And now there's a framework. So there, yeah, it can easily be adapted. What we wanted to do was build in some interoperability. We could have a standalone, or we could have had multiple different, if you want to call them walks, storybook walks, where it's actually quite interesting. The forest actually talks to you. So it's geotagged on everyone's phone. So you just download the app, and when you approach that the way marker through your phone GPS, it starts to initiate the voice. So we have, we put in some interoperability in there so we can have multiple walks, and so that is built into the platform and is easily adaptable for your Parks and Rec, or for anyone else that might be interested. So certainly we can certainly forward that on. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Anyone else? Okay, I have got a couple of questions. Because we've got hopefully quite a few people on here today asking questions or listening to our presentations. When you issue a permit, what do you look for?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So when we look at a permit, so we receive a permit application from someone that's trying to do work on their property, and it really depends on the scale and how close they are to a feature. So for instance, if a standard permit would look at what is it that someone is trying to do, a site plan, so a drawing that indicates what's going on, and that really is the base that we're looking for in order to set the criteria. We do have a standard checklist that is available as well. So depending on the type of project, it'll list the different types of things that we would be interested in. If you're closer to a wetland, for instance, then we'd be looking at a natural heritage evaluation. If someone is in a floodplain or close to a water's edge, then we'd be looking for the floodplain in those areas. So for instance, Nogies Creek has a floodplain in that area, and that's something that we would need in order to evaluate the application. And sediment erosion control is usually a pretty predominant area too. So indications of sediment erosion control would be important, especially for larger projects. For smaller projects, we try and work with the landowner and say, here's where you need to put in a silt fence. And certainly for shoreline drawings, we have a standard drawing that a lot of the contractors are using. to assist in kind of identifying what the standard kind of drawing profile is that can then be translated to the work in the field. So those are some examples of what we'd be looking for, and it does depend on how big the development is. Shoreline versus a house versus a subdivision that might be going in, or some sort of site plan, and also proximity to a feature. So in a feature, it becomes a lot more rigorous than outside a feature. So in a feature, I'm defining as like a wetland, a natural hazard element, karst, something that would be important from the regulation standpoint.
Okay, and two other ones, because I don't want to take up everybody's time here this morning, but mudding is a big problem on some of the areas that are up toward Nogies Creek, further up. And also when you talk about Scugog, the wild rice, are you involved in either one of those situations?
So we have been involved. Certainly we get questions, and mudding, you're like ripping around on an ATV kind of aspect.
Out
Yep.
into the
Which I can I attest to. It can be a lot of fun, but at the same time does cause some issues as well. Certainly erosion is a big factor in that. So from the development, from a regulation standpoint, it's an activity, and we don't regulate the activity. It's development. So the regulations are kind of interesting. They capture certain elements, but they don't capture everything. And so mudding is not one that we would typically capture in that, unless the trail was being graded in some sort of way. That now would form something, but mudding activities, yeah, that wouldn't necessarily qualify under a regulation. We have worked, in our conservation areas in terms of trying to find areas to reduce that kind of erosion and provide more sustainable trail usage. So those are some elements that we have some experience in, but it's different from the regulation, I guess you can say. So if you were interested in that, we could certainly reach out to some of your staff and try and support you in that way. And the second question that you had, so focused on the first one, it was exciting. The second one, could you just refresh my memory on that?
Well, the Scugog River.
Yes. Wild rice.
Wild rice.
Yeah. So for that, we do have some involvement. I would call it limited involvement right now. We did develop the Pigeon Lake Management Plan. And in that management plan, we did have a recommendation for wild rice. It was a big issue that was addressed during the plan, and certainly that was a big community concern. And we did work we did some work with First Nations, with Trent Severn Waterway, and with the community in order to try and find a resolve. But we generally left it as everyone needs to chat and try and solve the situation. And it was generally seen as outside the specific scope, because it was really it's really a governance issue between Government of Canada and First Nations. So they have an active committee that looks at wild rice and trying to manage it in a responsible way. So that's kind of where my knowledge base on that one, but it's not an active file, I would call it, for us at this point in time.
Thank you. Carol, I saw your hand up. Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I was going to make a motion to approve the $71,655 in our budget, because I assume that has already been incorporated into our draft budget. So I'd like to make the motion to.
Deputy Mayor Windover? Second? All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, now we're going to have a grant delegation from grant application from Bill Kent from the Buckhorn Community Center and Athletic Association. Please unmute your audio and or share your camera. Councillor Armstrong?
And Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to get a clear understanding of what our process is going to be. My assumption is that we will receive the presentations that are being made, and then we will defer any decisions on approval until after, and then go through all of the applications. Is that correct?
Yes. Everybody's in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, councilors, staff, virtual participants. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you today about the Buckhorn Center Community Grant application. Also wanted this time to thank Peter Franson for his steady representation of council as our liaison. Of course, as president, this presentation is made on behalf of all our directors, our board, our staff, volunteers, members, and everyone who enjoys using the BCC. What I want to do today, if you go to the next slide, is give you an update on some BCC initiatives and perspectives in support of this application, and give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. Next slide. As you know, the BCC is an inclusive organization. We're open to anyone. Membership is not required to use our facilities or programs. We've done a couple of things I wanted to highlight in the last couple of years that we feel are very significant. And the first one is our participation in the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Committee and the master plan that was developed by that committee. And secondly, in conjunction with that, we've also refreshed our own strategic plan. Okay, so COVID, has made us all aware, and maybe even more so at the BCC, that the key to a successful future is strong relationships and a clear roadmap. As Trent Lakes navigates the important decisions they'll make to prioritize and support implementation of community improvements of any kind, we believe that partnerships and processes are key to achieving the best outcomes. Next, please. This slide, this is basically straight from the Parks and Rec master plan. You all know about the master plan and how it builds on the emerging themes of council's own strategic priorities. It's intended to guide the delivery of programs and services over the next 10 years. It wasn't created in a vacuum. It's aligned with both provincial and municipal policy directives. It is a roadmap. In concert with our contribution to the PRC, BCC has completed the first phase of our strategic plan, our own roadmap, documenting our aim, vision, and mission, along with our guiding principles and strategic priorities. We've been careful to align our goals with your master plan, your goals, and now we're focused on designing implementation plans to act on our priorities. It's a process that we believe in. We'll continue to act, plan, or implement, and measure how well we're doing along the way. Our strategic plan is a commitment to our members, our community, and our partners. Next, please. Quickly, as an example of this alignment and our common goals, I've pulled out our strategic priority number 4, innovative programming and facility growth. This one deals with advancing programs and services where we identify community programming and service gaps. Also, it deals with upgrading and expanding space to do things like fulfill our role as a multifaceted community hub. And regarding grant funding and grant applications, we are very good at recognizing our funders. I know Ron has been at more than one event where we thank the municipality for your support. Ron is at all our events. Next, no, sorry, not yet. So what I'm trying best to outline here is the importance of working together so that our goals are pretty much your goals. The BCC fills a community gap day in, day out, year after year. And we hope that you recognize that we are working to do what you want us to. We want this partnership to work, and this grant isn't just about the money. We recognize that there's a lot of worthy applicants here asking for a limited supply of funds. But it's also about the outsized support you get for the community when you support the BCC. And it's about collaboration in any way possible to define and support our common goals. Next, please. So if we talk about money for a minute, I think you're one slide ahead, please. No, there's a slide missing there. Okay, anyway, if you go to the next slide. If we talk about money for a minute, and we go back to that strategic priority number 4, advancing program upgrade associated with these needs. We currently have 2 different consultants and 2 different lawyers doing work for us. We expect that in the next year, we're going to need 2 new paid staff. And that's on top of the tremendous amount of work that some of our key volunteers are doing. And we have some very professional people that provide key effort for us that is worth a lot of money for free. Our strategic plan projects will include a focus on communication. That could include upgrading websites and e-commerce options as we try to be a more virtual organization for our vendors who support us in craft shows and the art festival, for instance. And traditionally, in years past, as I understand it, this grant was meant to cover some of our operating expenses like property taxes and insurance costs. Well, those expenses are typically $750 a day. When the doors are closed for COVID, they're more in the $650 range, but they're still there. When we have capital projects, we apply for grants from every source available, but those grants, even when they're awarded, rarely cover everything. There are always incidental charges not included. For instance, we've applied this year for a Hydro One grant to install a generator. That grant is a maximum of $25,000. The project is $60,000. We are going to do it whether we get the grant or not. So if you go, yes, this is the last slide. Thank you. I want to emphasize finally that this is a partnership. The BCC is not all things to all people. We have core services and we build on our strengths. In simple English, we are focused on making sure we have our act together. There are many costs associated with being a best practice community center or a community hub. Partnerships can always work better. Some are more formal than others. And the relationships can be fluid, but the more we work together, the more beneficial it is for everyone. We think when you consider our application in this context, there's no doubt that whatever contribution you make, it will be more than worthwhile for the community. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Bill. Do we have questions? I'm looking for hands here. Councillor Armstrong? Carol?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Bill, same dilemma, I think, as what I was in last year, in the fact that the timing of this request comes before you've been able to close your books or at least get final financials for 2021. So in the absence of knowing what your current financial situation is, it's very difficult to understand what the need is and what the gap is. So I don't know if you can just share any high level summary of what your 2021 financials look like.
I'm not the best person to talk to the numbers. We have a finance committee. I think we answered all the questions on the application itself, plus provided, as you say, the previous year's audit report. If you want more specifics, I can supply anything you want. We are an open book. You know, yeah, we've had considering the situation with COVID and our inability to run our major fundraising events, we've had strong support from community donors. And in the past year, we have exercised grant opportunities and done well. But a lot of those grant opportunities, although they're significant, they translate into projects where you, as you know, you spend the money on what you apply for and then it's gone, right? So we have done things like put in sound deadening doors between the gym and the banquet hall, And we're currently part of that grant as well is to put a sound deadening door and create a separate room where the stage usually goes for the dinner theater, if you're familiar with the center, right? And that also included enough money to build a large storage shed out near our septic bed. So that grant was $150,000, for instance, right? So, and as you know, you've had come before you the zoning requests from Granite Ridge Estates, Jeff Cheshire, for 3 lots we've sold. That money will eventually we'll get it. That deal is over 3 years old. That's $120,000 that will go into a reserve for capital investment. And as we complete our priority projects for implementation relative to our strategic plan, we'll decide how to allocate that money and where it can be best used with other grant opportunities and so forth. But when you do major capital investments, that's still not a lot of money, as you know. Would you like some more specific information?
Yes, actually, I would. I mean, so again, it's hard to know where you stand without knowing whether you ran a deficit or a surplus and what that looks like. So very, very difficult. I think all of our other applicants provided a 2021 summary, even high level unaudited, so that we can work with that. So yes, I'm uncomfortable without having that information.
I can give you our
Which I know you
year-end balance sheet. Sorry?
That would be great.
Okay.
A year-end balance sheet would be perfect.
Okay, do I see any other hands? Councillor Limeshead.
Yeah, just more of a comment. I think, we know this is a partnership and we need to keep nurturing this partnership. We do have a lot of common goals in this community with the BCC. So I'd like to see that in your strategic plan, and I think there's good ways to move forward together. Thank you.
It's in there.
Right.
And I have a comment if everyone else is finished. When we talk about partnerships, we have been working with the BCC for the better part of, I think, 2 years ago. The discussion started in concerns with the advancement or not of the Buckhorn Rink. Now, it actually gets listed in as the BCC rink, but it is not. It's the township of Trent Lakes Rink. But the conversation has dragged on and on until our opportunities to locate it in another spot are narrowing, and that is a shame. So at some point, when this type of ask comes forward to me, I say to myself, and when we're asking for clarification from you, that keeps getting bogged down in information that won't happen without the BCC giving the go-ahead to research it and move forward. You are the stumbling block, and I find that very, very difficult to understand. It can be nothing but positive in the community. With the COVID regulations and the way they are today, if it doesn't move forward, like right now, it should be open. But there isn't any way that people can sit down there and do what they need to do as far as regulations, because it's not outdoor and it's not indoor. So that's technicalities. But I think we have been on tender hooks for a long time, waiting for the BCC to say yes or no. If they say no, end of discussion, we move on somewhere else. If they say yes, give us the options, then we move ahead in that format. But needing more information has been nothing but stepping in the way of a very, very worthwhile project. Carol.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to point out that, in BCC's defense, council passed a motion requesting them to respond to that very question. And I know that they are in fact, through their board, working on a response back to us. So I think, we have the ask out there, it's been formalized, and they are preparing a response. So we're perhaps, not working through the process that we have set in place. Again, in fairness to BCC.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Carol, except that this process has been requested over the last couple of years several times, maybe not in this formal. Councillor Franson.
And I do understand that there was no formal motion. It was done through the IPEC committee that does not represent council.
Councillor Lambshead, did I see your hand?
No, I made my comment.
Okay, anybody else?
I'd like to comment on that.
Yes.
As I said, we really believe that partnership and process is important. And we, in fact, our perspective on this is that due process has been followed, that the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee and the master plan have been very important processes and products, and that this particular item has been debated properly and has found its way through that process to where we are today. I don't think there was ever a mandate 2 years ago of any kind that said that put this on the table that required a yes or no from the BCC. I mean, we had Pete Clarkson come to us and ask us to sell land. And as Peter points out, he's nobody's representative. He represents the hardworking volunteers. And he told us he needed land so that you could apply for grants. And we asked him to go back and double check that because we weren't sure that was true. And then we never heard anything back. And then on December 7th, when you were making taking depositions on the consultant's report, Bruce Averill stood up and said that the BCC was a problem because they get asked questions like this and they don't answer them, right? So I put it back to you. Who is your formal representative? How have you dealt with us as good faith partners on this matter? Right? I believe the process is working very well. And as Carol has pointed out, we have now received a formal request after you've gone through this study and everything. And at our next directors meeting, we will respond to your request. Things like this, of this magnitude, require a public mandate, and they require clear definition as projects. The BCC, we cannot be in a position where we decide on behalf of all the residents and taxpayers of Trent Lakes an issue as important as this. But we will respond to your specific question at our next directors meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to receive this delegation? Yes.
We can receive all delegations at once
At the same time? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move on to John Harvey from the Firefighters Association. Please unmute your audio and share your camera and make your delegation.
Madam Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to our application. As in past years, this is to cover our insurance program that allows our membership to go into the community and fundraise and participate in community events. And again, and as you may remember, last year we made a request or application for $1,400 with a condition that should our actual premium come in at something less than that, we would refund back to the municipality up to $400, which in fact materialized. Our brokers had guesstimated with, I guess, a fractured crystal ball, thinking that it would be fairly substantial, and that didn't occur, thankfully. This year, their expectation is that we should be in the 7 to 8% increase, hence the $1,100 request. So again, I would I would suggest that if in fact it comes in at close to what it was last year, just under 1,000, we would refund again the $100 up request if that in fact materializes. I think the reality is that even the brokers who are, of course, are close to the reality of all this, aren't sure until the underwriters actually put pen to paper. Because we're hearing car insurances are going down because of COVID. People aren't driving. We're hearing that home insurances are going up through the roof because of all of the climate events throughout Canada, and so home ownership is or home insurance is becoming a bit of a premium. So I'm hopeful that that we're closer to reality when all is said and done, and hopefully you can agree that this is warranted in your total scheme of applications. I'm happy to take any questions regarding our application. If there are any.
Hey, we got questions. Do I see hands there? I have one comment. I think you guys do a fantastic job. I know when you go to different events, I think they're pretty well all volunteers that show up at those events. And there are many things. I can think of a couple that we've done this year that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for the fire department. So I think we owe you guys a debt of gratitude. Anybody else care to comment? Okay, we'll move on to the next one then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Hayden Wilson from Kawartha Land Trust.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. I will apologize right off the beginning. This is my first formal council meeting, so I'm sorry if I missed some of the finer points of delegations and how to refer to people. My mistake in advance. But thank you, everyone, for your time today. Really appreciate you hearing our case for this cause. And yeah, I'll get started. So as was said, my name is Hayden Wilson. I'm the Land Stewardship Coordinator at Kawartha Land Trust, an organization that helps to protect and preserve natural spaces within the Kawarthas. Perhaps you've been to some of our properties. And one of the properties that we are looking at doing some work on over the next year is John Earl Chase Memorial Park. Personally, one of my favorite properties to visit and to do land stewardship work on. It has a really wonderful array of just gorgeous features, from the rolling hills looking down over Buckhorn Lake to the wetlands and the vast array of trails that are on site, including spaces that go through species at risk habitat and have some really interesting features overall. Every time I'm there, I meet someone new, and really just one of my favorite properties. But I'll stop gushing and we'll get into this. Next slide, please. So over the past year, we've been doing quite a bit of work at John L. Chase Memorial Park. This is a photo from a work day of a few of us who were able to go out and do a tree planting event safely and at a distance with masks. But overall, the COVID-19 situation has been continuing, and I feel like I've said that about 10,000 times over the last 2 years, does make things quite challenging in a lot of aspects. One of which is being able to go out and do active habitat stewardship projects, improving the landscape, improving trails, doing other things that are going to be able to benefit the community and provide a space for people to go outside and recreate, especially during a time where it's difficult for people to gather in their backyards. We'd like to be able to provide high quality places to gather outside. Next slide, please. So some of our projects to date in the past few years have been some really wonderful excursions with school groups, other volunteer organizations, and people from the Trent Lakes community to go out and do active habitat restoration projects. This is a photo from a youth group called Tracks that had gone out with us last year, 2 years ago, and had helped us to restore a site of tallgrass prairie species. I'm not sure if council is familiar with tallgrass prairie, but it is one of the rarest habitats in North America, and most of it is contained right here in Ontario. John L. Chase Memorial Park actually has some pretty strong indicators that it had once been a tallgrass prairie, including some remnant globally significant species at risk. So we're actively trying to work on some of those things. Next slide, please. And another activity that we had undertaken last year was, I'm sure everyone has been familiar and may have, it's been a little while since this has been in the news, but is anyone familiar with purple loosestrife, the invasive plant, the purple plant that kind of goes everywhere? It's beautiful and it's gorgeous, and it tends to dominate throughout some of the wetlands, and certainly the numbers have fallen over the past few years, but in an effort to keep the wetlands safe and secure, we have done our best to go in and remove literal tons of garbage bags full of these plants and their very dense root systems out from the soils in the wetlands and replace them with native plants. So on the right here, you see a very large pile of very heavy, wet, sopping plant material that we had removed of the purple loosestrife. And on the left is the blue vervain, which is a native plant species that we replaced it with. Next slide, please. And then finally, one of our bigger projects last year was, again, doing this tree planting event. It was a wonderful occasion to be able to get out with some of our volunteers. Pictured here on the left is our Canada Conservation Corps intern, Lexi Armstrong, and on the right is our community conservation coordinator, Patricia Wilson. We're able to get out with those two, along with many other volunteers, and spread out in a giant open field, which is about as socially distanced as we can possibly get, to be able to come together and plant some trees and do active habitat restoration in one of the areas that I learned recently used to be a dirt bike trek, which explains a lot of the strange mounds and everything that were in there. It's great habitat for white pines, though. They love the drainage. Anyways, moving on to the next slide. So for the 2022 season, we have some projects that we outlined as pretty big priorities that we'd like to do to improve the overall quality of John L. Chase Memorial Park. So it pretty much splits into two categories, one being trail upgrades and the other being species at risk habitat upgrades. So trail upgrades would be things like filling in wet seeps or muddy spots with gravel. John L. Chase has quite a few water seeps going in throughout the wetland areas. In particular, on a map that I'll show you a little bit later, I can point out exactly where we're hoping to do that. Another project we'd be looking into would be installing boardwalks over sensitive habitat. So there are a few areas that go through vernal pools, which are incredibly important for amphibians and salamanders, and even some forest birds for foraging and nesting. Additionally, we'd be looking into using some of the funds to protect some of the trails from further erosion. Erosion obviously is a big issue in our lakes and streams, and we'd like to keep as much of the sediment on land where it's supposed to be as possible. And then finally, some of this money would also be to install gates and posts to prevent ATV access of the site. I know many people who personally really enjoy riding around on ATVs, and I can't deny that it is fun, but in some of these sensitive areas, particularly where we have globally sensitive species and habitats, we want to be able to put adequate barriers to keep some of those species from getting disrupted or disturbed. Next slide, please. And then the other half of the project we're looking to, or the other half of the funds we're looking to spend would be for establishing species at risk habitat improvements. This is a wide range of things and can really end up being quite multifaceted, but the biggest three that we've broken it down to would be establishing nest cavity boxes. So there are many species of birds globally that we have in Ontario as species at risk, including barn swallows, bank swallows, chimney swifts, a lot of the really impressive aerial hunters, the birds that you can see over open fields, dipping and diving and catching insects out of the air really quite impressively. Their numbers are dropping globally and provincially due to a loss of insect foraging and opportunities to hunt and nest. So if we are able to artificially create cavities for them to nest in, a lot of these birds nest in open cavities in trees through nest boxes or installation of, you can essentially get an old cedar log, put it in the ground and drill a bunch of holes into it, and they'll nest in it. It's a good surrogate for their natural nesting grounds. That's going to be able to really positively impact their populations in the park. Next would be to not only support these species at risk birds through nesting habitat, but also through availability of forage. So some of these birds, like I said, are early insectivores, but many of them will also eat fruits and seeds and other things as well to supplement their diet. So being able to plant things like service berries or hawthorns or other species of plants that provide important habitat for, that provide important forage for these birds is going to be able to not only support their homes, but also support their bellies, which is pretty important. And then the last project that we'd be looking into doing would be to install a larger wetland platform along the Red Loop Trail on the wetland. There is a platform that exists there right now, and it is really doing its job quite well, but where it is has started to fill in pretty significantly with different species that are part of the wetland succession process, and we don't really want to get in the way of that. So we're looking at alternate sites to be able to install a different wetland viewing platform so people will be able to look out, see the really wonderful array of species that we have out there, but also not get in the way of the habitat regenerating itself. Next slide, please. So as I alluded to before, this is the map of John L. Chase Memorial Park and where the trails are right now. So most of the trail work that we'd be doing and looking at the upgrades would be right potentially at the end of the yellow loop as it meets down towards Pigeon Lake to be able to stop some of the erosion. Along the red trail, if you follow from the parking lot sign up towards that first cross, going north from that spot or going upwards, you could, along the top end of that loop would be where we'd be installing the wetland trail. Along the bottom end of that loop would be where we would start placing some gravel or some of the boardwalks to cover over sensitive areas. And then in the open fields surrounding the red loop in general would be where we'd be looking at establishing the nest box for these cavity nesting species and for doing some planting to restore important forage for these birds as well. Next slide. And that is, in a nutshell, our proposal. There are more specifics on the numbers that I'm happy to provide. I figured I wouldn't put them on screen because we'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. But if anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm happy to take them now.
Okay, council, I'm looking for hands. Yes, Terry.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what species of trees did you plant in that field?
I'm sorry, could you say that again? You broke up a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just wondering what species of trees did you plant?
Oh, yes, of course, Councillor Lemshead. Yeah, so in the open area, we had a wonderful opportunity. I'll try not to go on because this is a really story that I really love. There is an organization called the Forest Gene Conservation Association, or FGCA, and they were formerly one of the biggest producers of genetically pure local seeds for Ontario. They collected seeds from all across the province, raised those individual plants, and then grew them. Since the last couple of years, the FGCA has now sort of become a little bit defunct in its tree seed planting capabilities. And in essence, they had a ton of white pines, specifically, how many was it? It was 2,468 or something like that, that these trees had to get into the ground at some point. So they were kind enough to donate these trees to us at cost, and we planted them out in the open areas to start restoring some of the large white pine forests that were indicative or that were typical in this area 200 or 300 years ago.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Hayden, for your first foray into this, you did very, very well.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
I think all of us are hearing very positive reviews for people who are using your trails. There is one area of problem, and that's lack of parking. So we as council members get complaints pretty much, well, in the summertime, I would say daily, but particularly in the weekends from people who are trying to access the park and parking as much as both sides of the road on the way in there. So that big open area across from the park that has the two stone gates, that area in there without too much work could create a nice big parking lot, which would safely get the people off that road. But otherwise, no problems at all. That also the big open space at night would make a great night sky viewing area.
We actually have a plan to do an event for one of those this year. I'm glad you brought that up. And thank you again, Madam Mayor, for bringing up the parking issue. We know it's been a really serious issue, especially on that blind hill coming up over the top. It can be a big safety concern. Recently this year, we installed some much larger parking this way signs to direct people towards where the actual parking lot is, which is in a different spot from where the actual archway gate is. So it's a bit confusing. But yes, it is something that we're looking to try and tackle and be able to do. So I'll definitely take it into consideration as part of our work plans for this year, because we don't want anybody getting hit on the roads. We just want people to go out and have a nice walk on the trails and see some birds and not have to worry about parking issues too much.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Well done. Okay, next we have Edred from the Buckhorn Public School Parent Council. Are you there, Edred?
I am here. I'm just making sure you can see me.
Not yet, but I know you're going to sneak in there somewhere.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, that's all we need. That's perfect. Okay. Good morning, Mayor Clarkson, Deputy Mayor Windover, and Council. I'm here to represent the Buckhorn Public School Parent Council and to talk about a fundraiser that's ongoing. It just started a couple of months ago, and it pertains to a play structure, an outdoor play structure. There we go. I was just making sure. So the first slide that you're looking at is an ad that we've put together as we begin this fundraiser, and it just showcases what's happened. And so where it says what we had, this is the play structure that was pre-existing. And last year, so 2021, all the play equipment in the school gets an annual inspection. And this play structure failed inspection. It was removed 3 months later. It was August 2021, right before the start or the beginning of school. So what you see in the what remains image is what we're left with, which is nothing. It was just removed abruptly. These older play structures, this one may have been over 25 years old, made of constructed of wood, and they did end up having safety issues. So it was impressive to have seen it last this long. But now the school is left without a play structure, and when speaking to the educators, it's a critical piece of equipment for the junior section of the school. So when we're talking junior, we're talking junior kindergarten all the way to grade 2, especially when they're using the cohorts that are so strict during COVID-19. When the kids go outside, junior kindergarten to grade 2, this is the play structure they would have used. It would have served for learning mobility, social interactions with other students. So if you go there today, you'll see them mostly during the springtime, of course, more than less, just playing with in the sand area and then just running around, of course, which is perfectly fine. But it is a critical piece of equipment that would help the educators, help the children, and we're left without it. So when you see what our goal is, the parent council and myself, we went out and we, just for the purposes of budgeting, we received 4 quotes from major manufacturers. The image that you see there is actually Henderson, which is a really big manufacturer of play structure outdoor equipment. And then that's what we aim to achieve. And that's one of the examples. When we reach our goal, and the goal is $50,000, the school has a policy, or the school board, it's a gentleman called Derek Gibbs, who's in charge of facilities. And the school has a policy of tendering it out. It's a 14-day tender. So we still have to tender it, but we receive quotes from the major manufacturers just to get an idea of what we're looking at in terms of costs. So on the second slide, I put in, it's the third slide, my apologies. So the very last page. So here's a quote from a company called Blue Imp. So generally a play structure comes in between $28,000 to $35,000. Each quote varied. Henderson was the best price in the quotes that we received. The additional money goes towards the site work, assembly, and installation. In this case, our landscaping, our landscape architectural design, setup, drainage, the whole play surface has to be completely new. And because we do have wheelchair, it's going to be a modern setup. So we do have students who require wheelchair access. And so therefore, we need a play surface that will accommodate that. So what that means is we need wood chip fibers. This allows for the wheelchair to go on the play surface, and then to be inclusive, the play structure will actually have toys on the ground level. So sometimes you see that if you go to the Peterborough Park and other play structures that have been installed recently. That just means it's inclusive, and children that won't be able to climb the steps or run around as easily can just still have time to play. So you'll see a lot of those components add to the cost, and I put that in there just as an example. That's only one of 4 that will just tell us exactly where the money will go towards. Up to this point, so we have a pledge of $5,000. We have a few community donations that have been made, And I estimate up to this point, we probably have generated about or raised upwards just around over $14,000. It's been difficult through COVID to get into the school to get a gesture of exactly what checks have come in, but I've spoken to people in the community who have donated or have shown enthusiasm to help. In a wealthier community, fundraisers like this sometimes take 6 to 8 months. There's been communities, there's one in Colborne, there was a school, the Colborne Public School, and they've gone through the same process. I believe their fundraising took 2 to 3 years. My hope is working hard enough at this, we might be looking at 1.5 to 2 years, hopefully. So when COVID restrictions are sort of limited and I can approach people and maybe provide a flyer, we'll get this moving. We're also going to use Rally Up, a website shortly that we're just testing, which is sort of like a GoFundMe website for schools and other organizations that is able to help us with online fundraising. And so we'll keep chiseling away at this. And this is just a grant application to see if the municipality is willing to or is going to be able to help. And I'm here in case there are any questions.
Okay, I'm going to first of all thank Enrid. Anything that we do to raise money for anything, that's what he is. I think right now he's got a fundraiser within his own pizza place. That's a certain amount of money goes to this process. Carol, can you comment? Carol?
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thanks, Andrew. Great presentation. Thanks for all the background work you've done on this. 2 important points I'd like to make in doing research behind this application. The first one is that the play structure would be available to the public during non-school hours. I think that's an important point to stress so that it would benefit the community, not just the school. The second important point, and it's now my understanding that these kinds of structures, outside play structures, are not funded by the province through their education funding, and they're not funded by the education board, the local education boards. So, this is something that has to be funded outside of those 2 streams. And given that, I think I have a better understanding of why this fundraising campaign is being launched and why we're being asked for money from the municipality. So just wanted to stress those 2 things for everybody.
Thank you.
Other councillors? Councillor Lambshead.
Yeah, I think once this gets some feet underneath it, I think you'll find you'll have a lot of community support as well.
Enrid, how many children are there in that school now, and the fact that this is a junior school?
Through you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I just want to thank Councillor Armstrong. I appreciate that. Those are 2 points I missed. This is completely funded by the community. The school has, they offer a little bit of support, but they just say it's on the parent. So I appreciate that. So at its peak, because it's been a COVID year again, or a pandemic year, I believe at its peak, it was in the high 160 students. And right now, and this is just, we do a pizza lunch Fridays. So I'm just gauging this based off of how many pizzas we make. We make little pizzas, and it's averaged about 150. So there's quite a fair number of students. It seems to fluctuate. They have added additional portable in the back of the school to accommodate more students. So right now we have 3 portables. One used to be the library, but the library has moved into the school. And I believe all the grade 5s, 4, 5, and 6s go into the portables. So we have an average of 150 students. At its peak, though, at the beginning of the year, is about 168, I believe.
We're a booming bunch. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Pam Dickey from the Trent Lakes Seniors, Selwyn Seniors. Pam, can you unmute your audio or share your camera, please?
I'm doing both right now, sorry.
I got a dog in between my legs, sorry. Ah. There we are. I'm fighting a dog, that's the other problem. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and the rest of councilors and deputy mayor. This is the first time I've ever done something like this, and the only reason I really wanted to speak to you today is this club is a small little known club in the area. I joined about 5 years ago, and I find it very beneficial just socializing with other area seniors, and it's not only from Buckhorn, but we also have the northern part of Selwyn Township. And it's hard to get the word out of what we are doing and what we plan to do. We've been doing potluck luncheons and having people come in to speak to us about various things concerning seniors. We used to have euchre, darts Monday mornings at the community center. And now we're me volunteering at community care, where I'm noticing that we're getting a more growth, yeah, I hate to say this, but of seniors in our area. And they need socialization, especially now with what's been going on with COVID. But I know there's 11 couples on my road that they have no idea what to do with themselves. And we need to get the word out about this group. And I think one of the best ways, I feel, is if we can get a website designed, link it to the township, the library, the tourism, to just let them know what we do. We have things planned, hopefully, once we get over COVID, to start up maybe a shuffleboard club, lawn bowling, carpet bowling is really a neat thing to do too, and just basically fill the void that is needed, because a lot of people do not come to the Diners Club at community care. They just think it's sort of something different, whereas our group will expand that, and I'm hoping that you guys will help us get this little project on the go. Any questions?
Pam, I have one. Have you ever thought of joining with the Diners Club?
We do. There's a lot of us that go to the Diners Club, but that's once a month. But there's, I hate to say this, Mayor Clarkson, but it's an older, I'm trying to be delicate. I mean, it's an older group that attend the Diners Club, whereas we're the younger seniors. So we're trying to get some stuff going for the younger seniors in the area. And I know there's a lot of grandparents moving into the area because the children are coming in, and it's a hard thing to say.
Now, Pam, your lunches are usually, everybody brings something, right?
Yes.
And
it's a potluck.
Yeah, potluck. Are you still using the room at the back of the community center?
We're into the main hall of the community center. We've outgrown the seniors room.
Okay, roughly how many of you are there?
Right now, there's 35, roughly.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? Yes, Ron?
Good morning, Pam. I've been at a couple of your meals, have been very good. I'm not old enough to be there, but I know that. But anyway, you do a good job. Thanks.
Thanks, Ron. I hate to say this, but you're older than me.
Yeah.
He's older than dirt. Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, I think the work that you're doing is great, Pam, and I think we need this for seniors to get out of the house and to stay active. They stay healthier when they're active, they live longer. So I think it's a great service to the community.
We're hoping to be able to expand once we get out of this COVID situation. And there's so many things that we can do, but we need to try and get some more members too. And the membership dues are really expensive. It's $10.
Oh.
So.
Okay, anyone else have comments? If not, let's thank Pam very much.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Well done, Pam. Yes.
If I could just get a motion to receive all the delegations.
Okay, can we have a motion to receive all the delegations? Councillor Lambshead and Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion is carried. Now, we received 3 grant applications after the deadline, and I think you've got the list. One is Beautiful Buckhorn, one is Cavendish Culture and Rec, and the other is Tourist Association. Do we have a motion to receive these late applications? Councillor Franzen?
Motion to receive.
Have we got a seconder? Councillor Windover, all in favor? Motion is carried.
Wait. Can I make a comment, please?
We're
Yep.
waiting. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Armstrong, please.
I support the motion to consider these. However, I also recognize that that's unfair to the people that did adhere to the submission deadline and get their applications in on time. So I think we know that they all do good work. We want to support all of those good organizations. But at the same time, if we're holding one group of people accountable to meet the deadlines and follow the process, we have to be careful about allowing others not to follow the process and be considered in the same light. So I think I'm just throwing out a caution to say, let's acknowledge that we are being uber generous to these people because we support what they do as an organization. But at the same time, we have a process for a reason. And I think next year, or I guess we won't be here next year, but I think we should do a better job of communicating up front what the deadline is, and then be very strict about adhering to it.
I think that's valid. Councillor Franzen?
I think we should also keep track of the late applicants to see if it's a trend. Because I agree with Carol, we have a deadline and the deadline should be adhered to.
Okay, are we still taking those comments to be recorded? Are we still in favor of accepting these 3 that are late?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, motion is carried. Okay. So we've got the Galway Hall. Donna, you're going to speak to these, I believe? Or are we going to deal with these other ones individually?
So thank you, and through you. I believe, yes, the plan is to have the halls go first. So if council want to consider those applications. So the first one is the Galway Hall, looking for support once again for insurance and for internet in the amount of $1,896.44. And I can advise council, the amount included the $50,000, which is remaining after the $3,000 is removed for miscellaneous grants, does not include our halls. We typically do those outside of that amount.
Okay, so we can go ahead then and get a motion as far as these are concerned at this point. Is that right, Jesse? Okay, so can we have a motion to accept that? Okay, Councillor Lambshead and Deputy Mayor Windover, comment?
Yeah, a motion to approve that with a comment was my motion. I think these are important parts to keep this alive up there. I mean, there's a lot of expenses, and I think this is an important part. Thank you to all of those
People. Yep. Jesse?
Can I just confirm, Councillor Lambshead, that you're supporting the full amount of $1,896.44?
Yes, I am, absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor, you're second in that? And we were in favor of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion carried. Okay, Cavendish, do you want to speak to that one, Donna, please?
So through you, thank you. Yes, so this application is also in relation to the volunteer insurance payment that is made. So they're asking for $1,470.58.
Okay, Councillor Windover,
I'll make the motion to receive that.
okay, second.
Yes, approve that.
I'll second the approval
Comment,
of the full amount.
Okay, that's
The
good.
Yes,
1,400 and
comment,
whatever.
whatever. I agree. All in favor? Okay. Thank you. Now, so now we're going to discuss the Tourist Association, right?
No, just, you can just start from the top and just read that.
The Trent Lake Outreach Center?
No, from the top of the page.
Okay, so in advance of the meeting, the Corporate Services Department has picked a random order for grant application to be considered, which are number 1, Trent Lakes Outreach Center. Number 2, Kawartha Lake Stewards Association. Number 3, Kawartha Land Trust. Number 4, Trent Lake Selwyn Seniors. Kinmount Agricultural Society, Kinmount Fair. Buckhorn Community Center. Firefighters Associations of Trent Lakes. Buckhorn Public School Parent Council. Greater Harvey Historical Society. And Buckhorn District Tourist Association. And the beautiful Buckhorn. These were approved to be inclusive. So we need a motion for the Trent Lakes Outreach Center. Let's get a motion and then we'll comment. Councillor Franzen?
I'll make a motion to support the application.
Okay, Councillor Armstrong? Yes.
Sorry.
I'll second.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, if I could just have council state the amount that they're.
Oh, the 1,000 requested.
Thanks, Councilor Franzen.
Okay. Comments? Anyone commenting? All in favor? Motion carried. I shouldn't say that. Did I see your hand, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay, and Councillor Franzen? All right. Kawartha Lake Stewards Association. Motion, please, and then discussion if there is any. Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, motion to approve the $1,000 as requested.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Lambshead. Comment? All in favor? Motion is carried. Kawartha Land Trust. Motion, please. Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes, I'll make the motion to approve it. Yes.
Okay. And for how much?
What was it? How much is it?
5,100.
5,100, yes.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, with a comment, if I may. Yes, with a comment, if I may. We really only have 3 established trails within the municipality, and Chase is one of them. And I think $5,100 is a small price to pay for the amount of work that they are planning to do to improve and upgrade that. So we could not do it ourselves for that price tag. So wonderful that they are willing to do it and we can help support them.
And it's a beautiful, safe trail.
Yes.
Okay, the Trent Lakes Selwyn Seniors, yes.
Sorry, I think you still have to conduct the vote.
Okay, we're all in favor of that one? Yes, carried. Motion for Trent Lakes Seniors and Selwyn. Councillor Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes, for the $1,000.
Okay, Councillor Lambshead?
Second that, yes, because it's important to have our seniors get out and do things. I've had the opportunity to attend one of their functions and it was very well received in Cavendish. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a comment.
Yes.
I believe also that Selwyn should contribute. It seems like very
Yes.
often some of these projects, it's a kind of a joint thing between Trent Lakes and Selwyn contributes very little.
Well, you could say the same for the BCC.
Yes,
But I
I
think,
agree.
I think we've been over this road before, and I think we deal with our own
Yep.
with the situation, and they do, pointing it
Just a
out
comment.
is not a bad idea. Okay, and I think when the presentation was being made, there's also quite a few people that come from the Cavendish area down to those functions as well. Okay, all in favor? Motion is carried. Kinmount Agricultural Society, Kinmount Fair, motion and or comment? Councillor Franzen?
A motion to support the $1,000.
Okay.
A comment, I think it's important to revitalize the Kinmount Fair, having been closed for the last 2 years. It's really important to this entire area, and it's a very well-attended fair, so I think it should be promoted.
Yep, I would agree. Seconder, Councillor Lambshead. Councillor Lambshead?
Yep.
Seconded?
I second that motion, yes.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Buckhorn Community Center,
Mhm.
Councillor Lambshead?
Would it be possible to defer a decision on this until after all the other smaller grants have been?
I think Councillor Lambshead's nodding, or Councillor Armstrong's nodding her head. I would nod mine. What's your feeling, Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes, I would prefer that.
Councillor Franzen?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, we'll deal with that later. Firefighters Association,
Mhm.
motion? Councillor Franzen?
Motion and support.
Thank you. Councillor Lambshead?
I'll second the motion for $1,100.
Okay, and comment, anyone? Councillor Armstrong? Or are you just supporting?
No, supporting.
Thank you. Motion for the Buckhorn Public School Parent Council. Motion and comment or comment. Councillor Windover, or Deputy Mayor Windover.
Yes, I'll make the motion to the $5,000.
Okay. Seconder? I will second that.
I have a comment.
Councillor Armstrong?
No, I have a comment.
No comment.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Franzen, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I think that this should be the responsibility of the school board. And I think that we contribute to the school with having the ice pad right across the road. And that was the reason it was put there, because it was the only viable spot within the town to put an ice pad that would be accessible to the school. So I think we contribute quite a bit there. And there are about 10 schools that the kids from this municipality attend, and I don't know how fair this is. So I'm going to ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, I'm going to make a comment. To start with, they have covered every option that you can think of from the school board. They do not support that at any school. So that has fallen back onto the school councils. So that's not an option. As far as where the kids come from, these kids are our kids, they're our responsibility. A playground is, how many schools do you look at that don't have playgrounds? The teachers and whatever there spend a great deal of time with the kids. And this isn't something that's new. This is a replacement, something that they've had. And I know from our little people that go there, it's been something that's been really missed. So I, for one, would support it. But yes, we can have a recorded vote. Councillor Lambshead.
I would support a smaller amount of that grant. I think we're going to find that there will be a substantial amount of support from the community on that. You know, I would support $3,000, not $5,000, but that is my own opinion.
Okay. Councillor or Deputy Mayor Windover, did you make the motion?
I made the motion, yes.
You made the motion. And what is your motion for? 3 or 5?
Well, I can change it to 3,000 if that's,
What people want?
yeah.
Okay, then you want a recorded vote?
Yes, I do. The amount isn't that important to me. It's setting a precedent. And what are we going to do for the other schools that don't have playgrounds where the children from our municipality go?
I think that's a big reach, Peter. I think we look after our own. If you look at all of the grants that we've made.
But they are our own kids, Janet. They are people that go to Buckhorn, that live in Nogies Creek along 49, that go to Bob Cajun School. The kids in Kinmount that go to the Copaconk School. I don't know what kind of facilities they have, or whether we care what facilities they have.
Well, there's not too many junior kindergartens can get to. Anyway, we've got a recorded vote coming, and I'm understanding it's $3,000. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Can we have a recorded vote, please?
Yep. Councillor Franson, are you in favor?
No.
Councillor Lambshead?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes.
Mayor Clarkson?
Yes. And that vote has carried. Okay, motion for the Greater Harvey Historical Society. I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clarkson. I would make a motion to support 2,000 rather than the 5,000 that they have requested. And my reason for that is their entire budget for this year is less than $5,000. I don't think we're in the business of entirely providing revenue to support an organization, that there should be some onus on them in a sustainable world to be raising some of their own revenue. So I would make a motion to support $2,000.
Okay, have we got a seconder to that motion? Or do we have a comment? Councillor Lambshead.
Yeah, I think I would support more than that, because this is
Yes.
it's a vital organization. I think they have a lot of archived information that we need in Trent Lakes, and they're very active. Even though we were in a COVID shutdown, they still opened up to do some more archiving of records, and there's been a lot of support there. So I would certainly support more than that.
And they sell books and whatever they can in order to make money. Deputy Mayor Windover.
I'd make the motion for the 5,000. Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion on the table?
Yeah, I think there's a motion.
Councillor Lambshead, do you want to put a figure in?
No, I was just mentioning that there was a motion already on the floor, I think. So.
Oh,
Yep.
well.
Okay, so Carol, do you want to hold your motion till we get a thing here? Do you want to try yours and see if it goes? Okay.
I would be willing to amend it. I would be willing to amend it to $3,000, but again, from a policy perspective, I don't think we should be paying the entire expenses for any nonprofit organization. In that case, they basically are an arm of the municipality, and it puts them into a whole different category. And I absolutely respect the work that they do. I think it's terrific and it should continue. But again, from a policy perspective, if we pay all of their expenses, then we should control them, which I don't want to do.
I don't think they need controlling. Okay, do we have a seconder? Do we have a seconder for the 3,000?
Sure.
Councillor Lambshead.
I'll second the 3,000. That's helpful.
Okay, all in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, Buckhorn Tourist Association. Do we have a motion?
me.
I'm looking for a hand. Councillor Franzen.
Motion support.
Okay, I will second that motion. Comments?
I do have a comment.
Yep.
There seems to be a little bit overlap here between the Beautify Buckhorn and the Buckhorn Tourist Association. On their applications, they both indicated that they're doing the same things. So I just, if we get some clarification on that. I'm not opposed to supporting either one of the groups because I know they do a lot of work within the area.
I think probably where the overlap comes is that the volunteers that work in both help in both.
Yeah.
Councillor Lambshead, do you want to comment?
I was thinking of supporting this, but with a little bit of a reduction in the amount. That 5,000 was a lot of money.
Mhm.
I was more aligned with 4,000, not 5,000.
Okay, now I'm going to make a comment, and part of it is through the economic development, but part of it is just my own feeling. We have considered over the last year hiring economic development officer. That building does more for this area than an economic development officer would do that we would pay anywhere from $40,000 to $70,000, depending on what. And I know the last time there were statistics kept, it gets almost the same amount of visitors. Probably now with the way that they've moved the one in Peterborough, probably gets more. So I think if we're looking at anything that we're going to get our bang for the buck out of, it's probably that tourist association. So having said that, Councillor Lambshead, do you want to stay with the 4?
No, there's a motion on the floor, so that was just my comment.
Councillor Franzen, you want to stay with the 4?
I would amend my motion to $4,000. I think that's fair.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
I believe you were the seconder, Mayor.
I was a second for 5.
Okay.
Yeah, Jesse?
No, that's fine. I was just going to say that you were the seconder, but it looks like you may have a seconder.
Yeah.
Another one.
Councillor Windover?
Yes.
4 or 5? I think the 5 is on the floor first because Councillor Franzen made that. I seconded it. Shall we call a vote on that one first?
Just for clarification, Councillor Franzen amended his motion to 4.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, I didn't get that. Okay, then let's record this vote. Yes.
Through you, I'm not 100% clear on who the seconder is.
The seconder would be Councillor Lambshead, I believe.
No. Deputy Mayor Windover was seconder.
Or?
On that amended motion.
Okay.
In support of that amended motion.
Ron, you're talking about 4, not 5.
Yes, 4.
Okay. All right. So can we have a recorded vote on that?
Yep. Are you ready for the vote?
Yep.
Mayor Clarkson, are you in favor?
No.
Councillor Franzen?
Yes.
Councillor Lambshead?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes.
And that vote is carried. Thank you. So Beautiful Buckhorn has been included, and do we have a motion there?
Me. Yep.
A motion for the Beautiful Buckhorn, please. That's the group that do the flower basket, the barrels. Councillor Lambson.
I think Councillor Franzen had his hand up first.
It doesn't matter.
I'm looking at him and saying you.
I'd like to make that motion, but I'd make it for a lesser amount, for $1,500.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Lambson. You're the seconder?
Sure, I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Motion has carried. Thank you. Yes.
Now we'll have to go back to the BCC.
Okay, so can we get a tally as what we've spent so far?
Yep, and we'll pull it up on the screen. It looks like it was not tallied.
I hope not.
And can you click in the 4,500 box? And see what it's summing? Can you just, yep. And then can you just delete within that cell and just, yeah, make sure that it's expanded to the whole selection? I think it was it should be K24. You've got it in the wrong one now.
Jesse, do we want to give Donna and everybody a chance to do this? And we'll move through and then come back to this. Make sure that you got theirs correct, or?
Councilor Armstrong is saying she has 24,700. I'm not sure. Anyone up there can confirm at this time?
I think that's a close enough estimate for right now.
And I believe the original amount was 53. Carol, sorry, Councilor Armstrong, had you included the 3,000 for the miscellaneous grants?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so then the total to be given was the 53,000. There was more than that, but.
So through you, I believe we've awarded 21,700 so far.
Right.
So,
Plus
And
the
then
3.
Donna, there was the 3,000 for the miscellaneous grants, right?
that's correct. So if you take the balance would be 29,032.84, I believe. Because I just used the 50,732.84 based on the fact that the 3,000 is already approved.
Councilor Franson?
I'd like to make a motion that we give a grant to the BCC of $29,000.
I'd like to keep, and I'm not sure where this falls because I'm a little confused here. But when I spoke to, I guess it was Jesse earlier, that $3,000 we've always kept there in case we get things that come up throughout the year. So I don't know that we want to build that into this and like spend it at this point.
Through you, it's not being spent, it's being kept aside. The 3,000 is still in there. You will have 3,000 throughout the year for miscellaneous grants. The 29,328, Donna?
$29,032.84.
Includes 3,000 for miscellaneous grants.
No, it does not.
No, it can't. It can't.
And can you scroll down? It does include the 3,000 for miscellaneous grants. The total remaining with the 3,000 in there is $29,032.84.
That's correct.
But if you do that, does that not give away the 3,000?
No.
Because we want to keep that because we get different things that come up.
Yeah.
Councilor Lambshead, you have your hand up?
I don't know if we have a seconder or not, but I would second the motion to grant BCC $29,000. It is a vital part of our community. So.
Councilor Armstrong?
Yes. Recognize BCC is an important partner in our community, and I completely agree that we should be giving them a wholesome grant. Personally, I'm unable to make a decision on that until I've seen their financials. I just, on a principle basis, maybe they're not, but maybe they're sitting with 100,000 surplus from 2021, or maybe they have a deficit of 100,000. That would impact my decision on how much to award them. So if we vote on it today, I will abstain. I'd like to defer it.
Have we any other comments? Councillor Lambshead.
I'm just wondering if we have Bill Kent on the line and he could let us know any of that information, just a quick note.
Can we retrieve you, Bill?
I don't see Bill on the line anymore.
Councillor Franzen.
I just want to point out that's over $2,000 less than we allocated to them last year. It was $31,000 and change that we gave them last year.
And the year before that, it was 25, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but they've been also dealing with COVID, so they're in the same kind of situation as our community centers.
Okay. Councillor Armstrong wants to defer. Councillor Lambshead wanted to do the 29. Am I correct?
I seconded Councillor
29.
Franzen's motion, yes.
Okay, so we've got that motion on the floor. All in favor?
Can we have a recorded vote, please?
Sure.
Councillor Armstrong, are you in favor?
Abstain.
Mayor Clarkson?
Yes.
Councillor Franzen?
Yes.
Councillor Lambshead?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes.
What's an abstain vote?
I think that's counted as a no.
Negative vote.
No, but on a recorded vote. That's just that you don't approve of the motion, is it not?
It will show up as an abstain. That is, Councillor Armstrong is not voting on this question, but by not voting, it counts as a vote in the negative.
Right, so it's a lost. All right, that vote has passed or carried. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, now we're going to go to Donna for the draft budget update.
Thank you, and through you. So I have prepared a report for council based on the changes that have happened since our November 15th meeting. So I am now able to provide you with the growth numbers. So growth for the municipality was 1.02% in 2021. And as a reminder, the growth is the difference between the assessment that we started at the beginning of the year with and what we ended with. So all of the differences would include any additional builds, renovations, that type of thing, but it also is the net of any assessment reductions. So I provided the figure for you there. It's 27.5 million in additional assessment, mostly in the residential farm class. So at the assessment at year end is what we've loaded in to calculate the taxes, which is that number at the bottom. So the $2 billion number, 2.7. So I've also provided you with a comparison of the yearly growth for 2021 and 2020. And as you can see, based on our previous discussions at our November 15th meeting, we have seen a large activity in our building department. So obviously there is still assessment to be picked up, but there has been some delay in that process with MPAC because they can't get their assessors out largely off and on. So the additional assessment with that 1.02 has resulted in tax dollar increase of revenue of $106,495, and I have used that in calculating the new rate. So I've provided you with a breakdown of where the assessment lies, just for your information. And just as a reminder that there is no CVA or current value assessment increase for 2022, and we only have the growth increase. So I have also provided you with updated working budgets for all departments, and the changes in those budgets are the ones approved from the November 15th meeting. There have also been some additional changes as determined by individual departments based on costs or projections. And I have also outlined that there has been some spending on the Trackmatics system, which is a vehicle tracking system. Our current system will be decommissioned by the spring, and the Public Works Department has been installing the Trackmatics system in vehicles that have been replaced in tandems. It's also in some of our patrol vehicles, and it can be installed in the pickups as well. So there is an additional amount added in the budget that I wanted to make you aware of in the capital portion of the Public Works budget of $24,066.29 and $850 in the operating budget for this system. And this system tracks additional information that our previous system did not. So it tracks plow up and the wing up, the material spread rate, amount of material, truck speed, that type of thing. And I know Evan can speak to that more should council have some additional questions. So we've also had some good discussions with the other departments, because there is obviously a benefit to track where our staff are for other departments for safety reasons. So the recreation and facilities are looking, they have added $1,200 in the operating budget. They're going to try a system that's called Keep Trucking, and that will allow them, they believe, to do what they need to do for their staff. And then the building and planning department are looking to use the iPhone tracking for 2022. We are looking to try to streamline and have the same system for all departments eventually, but we wanted to make sure that was the appropriate system for all departments. So we're asking for a little bit more time on that, but these systems will allow us to track where all of our staff are, and that's the important thing we're looking to do. So, and as a reminder, the CAT track system does track our loaders, graders, those type of systems. So under our purchasing policy, because of the amount indicated, we would typically look for 3 quotes, but we're looking not to do that because the Trackmatics system has already been installed in several public works vehicles, and it makes more sense to proceed with that system. So I also wanted to get or seek council approval today to single source the insurance renewal for June 30th, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. As council are aware, insurance costs are a major budget impact for the municipality, and that's largely because of joint and several liability. And there's been many delegations, many requests for that process to be revamped. And AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, are leading the charge essentially and have started that push again. So we will be asking council for a resolution as requested by AMO at the February 1st meeting, in recognition that the costs are unsustainable at this time. And we're hoping that that process changes. But for this renewal, based on the fact that we did go out and try to obtain quotes for a recent renewal for the 2020 to 2021, and we were not able, firms were not interested in bidding at that time. So we have talked about wanting to put out a tender, and just to make sure we're getting the best costs as we can, but we are in real agreement that at this time the market is considered hard, which means there's just not a lot of, there's not a lot of firms out there willing to bid. So we're looking for support to single source and to make sure that we try over time to obtain the best insurance costs possible. And I'm also aware that there are other municipalities that have gone to tender and not received any bids or higher bids. And there have been municipalities that aren't able to get cyber insurance. That seems to be the thing right now. I know the county just had a renewal. Theirs came in at 68% increase, and there weren't any other firms looking to bid on that insurance for them. That's a major area where there have been large payouts. So with our current carrier, we are still able to obtain cyber insurance through them, and I don't know what the increase will be, but I do know that we're in a good position right now with all the work that's upcoming, and I've had some really good discussions with Microwave. As you know, council supported the implementation of a new system for the municipality, new server, Office 365. There's a lot that will happen now that will protect the municipality even better. So I think all of that will come into play and hopefully help us with the renewal on that one. So based on the changes so far, we have a levy increase of $98,437.94 or 0.97%, which actually results in a tax rate decrease of 0.07%. And I have provided you with a spreadsheet of what that does to the average homeowner, and that average homeowner, the assessment has gone up slightly only because we've had that growth added in there, but most people will see the same assessment as in 2021 that they will be billed on in 2022 unless they have made improvements to the property. But that is the average effect on the average homeowner in those associated classes. So there are some additional requests that we need to consider today, but that's the end of my report. And yes, I would just be looking for the support as outlined in the recommendation. So it would be just to receive my report, to approve single source procurement for the GPS monitoring equipment and insurance renewal. And I'm also looking to seek support from council to transfer $132,149.83 out of the Safe Restart Reserve to offset the 2021 COVID-19 costs. And I have provided you with a breakdown of what that's spending. We have to spend that money by the end of this year. That was money that was given to the municipality over 2020 and 2021. And we have utilized that money, and I've given you a breakdown what that's been used for. So that's it for me. Any questions until we get to the actual request for additional funds for the budget?
It took a lot more to do it than to say it, Donna?
Kind of, yes, thank you.
Okay, do we have any comments for Donna? I have one. Donna, is it prudent to have 3 different systems involved in the tracking? Because I know when all of this research has been done at the county, one of the problems that they've got is that they have so many different people that don't talk to each other, and then if something fails, you can't mesh it in with something else. Does that apply here, or is this something outside of that?
So through you, I agree. For simplicity, we would prefer to have one system, and that's why I mentioned it in the report that we're looking to do that, hopefully. But I think the first step in that is looking what each department requires. So we know our public works department requires data on the particulars that I provided in the report in relation to the plow and the material, that type of thing. But what do our other departments need? And quite frankly, it ended up being just a lack of time to really investigate Trackmatics for all departments. So we just want a bit more time. That's what we're aiming for, just to make sure we're all covered at this time. But yeah, we thought we'd just give it a little more time just to make sure we know exactly what is required in our other departments. And of course, our fire department is already tracked through their processes.
Does the do the insurance providers require this type of thing, or do we have to get points for having it?
So through you, I have not seen that it is required, but there's definitely and I just received that information actually yesterday. It's a very lengthy process for the renewal annually. And there is an opportunity for me to comment on anything we do in addition to what is required, because they take it all into account. It's all, you know, it's all about risk. It's all about what we're doing to mitigate that. So yes, there isn't an actual thing, do you have a GPS system, but it is a common thing to have because it's an important thing to have.
Okay, do I see any hands for any further questions? We just need a motion to accept this, right, Jesse?
Receive it.
The recommendations on screen.
Okay. So do we have, Councillor Lampstead?
I would make a motion that council receive the 2022 draft budget update report from the CAO treasurer, and further that council approve a single source procurement for both GPS monitoring equipment and insurance renewal from June 30th, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and further that council direct the transfer of $132,149.83 from the Safe Restart Reserve to be used to offset 2021 COVID-19 costs.
Well done. Do we have a second? Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion has carried. Carol? You're in favor?
No, I'm good. Yes.
So do you have a comment?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. The next one
Through
we've
you,
got.
Mayor, through you, Mayor, I think it's just the lag in the time to get the signal back. So
From
Carol, it's from Councillor Armstrong, it just takes some time for her hand to get up there it takes a few seconds for it to show. So.
I don't think she put it up.
I did.
Okay. Pardon? Can't hear you. Okay. We're going to go on to Dylan Kosh is Director of Recreation and Facilities. Capital budget request for the Galway Kitchen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you have a budget paper that is a follow-up to the original request from the Galway Hall for kitchen improvements. Council had approved it in principle with the request of some additional costing. Staff reached out to multiple vendors. We had very little success, determining a high-level budget from them. So we amalgamated what information we did get from them and our past experience and what we thought is going to be required at this to arrive at a dollar amount of $155,000. This does include a small contingency for unforeseen incidentals that we may come across in the renovation process.
Okay, and we got questions. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Dylan, for doing this. I know we looked at 100,000 initially, and obviously with the cost of things, it's grown a bit. My question is, can we not fund this through some reserves, since it is a capital project, rather than increasing taxes?
Through you, Mayor. The Recreation Department has a very small reserve, but perhaps Donna has more information on the feasibility of that request.
Thank you. Through you. Dylan is correct. There wouldn't be enough in reserves associated with recreation. I'm not really, I know for the siding project, for instance, we used because that came in over the amount we were awarded under the grant. We did use some funds under the energy reserve, so I could have a look, but yes, the answer is there isn't money aside for this type of thing in this department at this time. It's a relatively new department, so we've been trying to build some reserves for that purpose. Yes, we'd have to, I could have a look at council direct that they wish this to be funded through reserves, but it's certainly not something this department has sitting there for use.
I'm surprised that
And if I may follow on, thanks, Donna.
Go ahead, Carol.
Sorry, if I may just follow on. Thanks, Donna, for that. Because recreation facilities is such a small department, I appreciate that there may not be reserves right there, but this is a building we own. It is a capital improvement. It probably will have some energy savings, so the energy reserve might be an option, but I would really like to try to see if we can't fund this through reserves.
So through you, we
I'm
could
all
also,
for supporting.
sorry. We could look at, we do have some monies in an accessibility reserve. If that type of renovation would create a more accessible ability, is that something that would make sense, Dylan?
Yep, through you, Mayor.
Yes.
I think both, there will definitely be energy savings because lighting, plumbing fixtures, and gas appliances are being considered in this renovation, as well as we could definitely look at, once we get to the design stage, of how it can be done to facilitate accessible usage at that facility. As it is a new renovation, that would be something we definitely would want to be considering.
I'm surprised that something like this would go through the Parks and Rec. I would have thought that it would have been more with a, I don't know, a building. I guess it is a building. Carol, did you have your hand up again?
Yes, sorry. I would make a motion to approve adding this to the 2022 budget, but to fund it as much as possible through reserves.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Unless there's more discussion, is there any more discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I did have a comment there, Mayor Clarkson. Just some of these things can be covered by some grants. So I don't know if there's any grants available for kitchen revitalizations in municipal buildings, but it's certainly worth exploring.
So through you, yes, we have seen grants for this type of thing before. I'm not aware of one right now, but we will certainly try to find more of those as well, because you're right, it is a traditional use of grant funding for this type of renovation. So we will certainly try to see if there's anything further out there in that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do you want to move into the open spaces plan there, Dylan?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again, Mayor. So before you have a budget request that did come through from Councillor Armstrong in the original budget presentation, I believe back in November. But this is just me rebringing it forward because this is a resolution that council passed that staff were directed to develop a long-term open spaces plan for the municipality of Trent Lakes, linking trails, parkland, playgrounds, and beaches to encourage healthy, active living and to promote a resilient economy and environmental stewardship. So to determine this budget, what I did is I went on a few resources we have electronically to see other awarded RFPs of a similar nature, basically determined a per capita cost for those and applied that to Trent Lakes, which I believe, and then again, a small contingency arriving at a value of $30,000 for this plan.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes,
Carol?
thank you. Thanks, Dylan. I would make a motion to I would make a motion to approve this. It's already encompassed in the draft 2022 budget that Donna presented earlier. So it has no further impact on the tax rate. So motion to approve.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Franzen, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you commenting or seconding?
No, I am seconding it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Seconder, do we have any other comments? Councillor Lambshead?
Just, I think this is necessary for the next step in our open space policy, so I support it.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Golden Park, Dylan, you're still there.
I'm still here. Lastly, council did request at the last budget meeting for the EDAC to put their project ideas into a priority and assign some values to those for council's consideration. So I worked closely with a couple of members of the EDAC to develop this priority, and then we worked to cost it what each of these items would be worth. The pavilion is a Class C cost estimate provided by the same contractor that did our Galway Hall siding renovation. So we do have some preliminary design. Again, it's quite preliminary, but it does give us some accuracy on this value, which is significantly higher than the original value predicted. I'm thinking this is mostly due to our COVID constraints and supply chain issues that we're having these days. But they have provided me a breakdown for those. Additionally, the EDAC has wanted to consider water at the site, which some cost estimates have been provided for it. There would be additional construction costs associated with the constructing the pavilion, because we would need to add a mechanical room to house the water supply and treatment facilities. So that $225,000 would need to be increased if we're looking at water in addition to the actual well, septic and treatment equipment. Next up on the priority was the playground, which is the value was determined from previous approvals through council, being a $50,000 playground, and then we've allowed for $25,000 for site works, installation, and any kind of final landscaping required. Gardens both along the water and around the pavilion at an estimated cost of $13,000. Again, if the pavilion was not to go forward, this value would be, cut in half kind of thing. This includes all new stonework, topsoil, mulch covering, filter cloth to install those. We predict we would be doing this, and rental equipment to do it. We predicted these gardens would be done in-house. A viewing platform, estimated cost of $30,000. This is based on a cost for a Trex or a composite wood product to ensure longevity of it and reduce maintenance costs. The floating dock at an estimated cost of $65,000. Again, I believe this is drawn from our previous estimates that were mentioned to council at the last budget meeting for a composite wood and aluminum frame. And then the EDAC would also like to consider options surrounding washrooms. So there's kind of three options that we've priced out, being status quo, which is about $400 per month for one unit during the summer. We could increase that to 2 units to kind of reduce the strain on the single unit. Another option being considered is a towable trailer washer that will be placed on site, renting that from our current contractor at a estimated cost of $3,000 per month. Or there is the option to purchase a trailer of the same nature. Costs range from $65,000 to $125,000 plus an estimated service fee of $300 a service. We're assuming we would need about 1 service per week on that type of facility, which includes a pump out and a water fill. So that cost would be about $1,200 a month. And then we all, of course, have to actually maintain the trailer itself if we were to do a capital purchase. So I guess at this stage, I'm looking for some council direction on what council would like to proceed with. If, from a staff perspective, anything beyond the first 3 and then the washroom consideration is taking on a very big workload for staff, including our regular duties and the other capital projects we're considering this year, as well as the open spaces plan. Taking on more than that would be a fairly large burden to staff that I don't want to see it not get completed because we bit off too much.
Councillor Franson.
What I would support this coming year is the pavilion, the garden, and the portable washrooms. And I would like to defer the rest to the following, to do it in a 3-year cycle. Do 1 project per year.
Councillor Armstrong.
Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Franson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for that, Councillor Franson. I'm honestly, I have worked on EDAC, and I know that all of these projects have been under consideration. I'm honestly shocked at the final price tag. We have $66,000 budgeted for improvements to the park for this year. And so if we were to do the pavilion and the gardens and the washrooms, we are increasing taxes by 2 to 3%, which I don't think is reasonable. All of these things are worthy and helpful, but not necessary. So my suggestion would be we stick with the budget of $66,000. If we can fund any of these things with reserves, I would top it up to $100,000 and then let the committee decide how they want to spend that and have Dylan and his department fulfill it. But I'm not prepared to raise the tax rate to fund any of these this year.
Okay.
Councillor Lambshead.
I look at the playground as a important thing for me and from my perspective, but I do agree with Councilor Armstrong. I think raising taxes this time is going to be difficult. We're in a very unusual situation in our world, and we don't need to put any more burden than necessary on our ratepayers.
No.
Deputy Mayor Winton.
Yes, I'll definitely agree with them that we don't need to put that kind of expense on us.
Okay, so is anybody prepared to make a motion?
Carol.
Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I guess I would first ask the question of Donna, and I'm sorry to do this again, but could we find $34,000 in reserves to bump up the budget to $100,000? And if the answer is yes, then I'd make a motion to support 100. If the answer is no, then I would say we leave the budget at $66,000.
So through you, I believe that we could look to do that. I know Councillor Armstrong mentioned the gas tax funding, which isn't called gas tax anymore. And Bianca was kind enough to do a little bit of research for me on that. There is the potential to use some gas tax funding for a playground, it says. So potentially we could look at using some gas tax money, and that is under the recreation portfolio. Some of the new spending under that funding is just kind of rolling out. So I'm getting up to speed on that myself. It's been traditional that it's for transportation, that type of thing, to reduce emissions. So there could be the ability to use some gas tax funding too. So I can certainly look to do that, and any reserves money. So yes, I would say the answer is yes to that. And just to clarify as well, we do have an application out. We have our second application out for grant funding for that playground equipment. And we did get a call on that as well, questioning some of the things on there, which sometimes is a sign, but obviously not a guarantee. So yes, I could do that for sure.
So I think what I'm hearing is there's, other than the topper of the money that Carol was talking about, it looks like that there's a consensus that the playground is worth pursuing one way or another. The gardens, which I think can be added to that type of thing. I think Bill says a lot of that could be done in-house. In my view, the next item of importance would be the dock, because right now there's at least 3 different companies out there looking at their tour dock proposal. And I've had some working discussions with the marina, the Buckhorn Marina. And he said he has never, in all of the years that they've been there, had the types of inquiries from boaters that they've had this year. He's got an application in for an addition there. So our waterway is one of the things that has actually benefited from COVID. Now, we're not getting the degree of the loopers yet, but that will come back this summer because they're waiting and they're looking for places to roost. So I think priority-wise, if we're looking at tourism, that's an option. But I think that option is kind of, it's there in terms of its approvals. How long those approvals are going to last is anybody's guess. That's probably something that we should know about. I think I'm hearing from council that the $225,000 for the gazebo is beyond anything that we would support at this time. If you look at some of the items that aren't specifically in here, and that probably is washrooms, because if you look at the usage of that the park is getting, whether it's expansion of boating or playground or whatever, Buckhorn is in desperate need of a good washroom. So that probably is something that should be worked into the budget within the next year or two, or grants or whatever. But you know, it could be a permanent structure, something that's done. There's 2 or 3 of these around that are done like small cement. The fire truck can go in, hose the things down for that matter. But you've got something permanent. Once you build it, they're usually done at a cement block. They're sprayed with an enamel to make them look good. With that, obviously, would come the septic and the well, which is two of the asks that are in here. But I think in terms of the development of that area, that would be money that's well spent. Whether we want to work it into this year's budget or not is not up for me to say. But I think if we're looking at a $225,000, and you look at these other items, that's not a difficult call to make. Any other comments? So I think since there aren't anybody willing to make Councillor Armstrong's topping it to 100,000 for the playground and whatever, with some grants thrown into it, but topping it at that figure. Councillor Armstrong, do you want to build on that or take away from that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would make it a little bit different than that, Mayor Clarkson. I would make the motion that we approve $100,000 in the 2022 budget for the park improvements, the $66,000 that's already there, plus $34,000 from reserves. And I would prefer to have the committee come back to us and tell us how they want to spend that $100,000. And then Parks and Rec can put that into their work plan for 2022. rather than council making that prioritization decision.
Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, I would second that motion just with the comment. I do think the pavilion is an important piece, but that's for some time in the future, because I think it helps with rock the locks and different functions, and I think it would be a real asset to Buckhorn.
Councillor Lambshead, comment?
Oh, I agree on it. I agree with Councillor Franzen's idea there. It's an important part. It's just unfortunately, it's a rather expensive important part that I don't feel we should put a burden on our ratepayers for this year for that. But we can certainly look at that in the near future.
Councillor Windover or Deputy Mayor Windover?
No, I think we should definitely look at it another time, not right now.
Yep.
Okay, so that motion has, who is going to second that?
I seconded it, Mayor
Okay.
Flexen.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion is carried. Here, Dylan, you're up to confusion again. Okay, now we need to get a motion to approve the confirming bylaw. Councillor Franzen and Councillor Lambshead, all in favor? Motion is carried. Motion to adjourn.
So, Mayor Clarkson, through you, may I just ask a question then?
No, we're done.
I just want to clarify, I believe we're at the stage then that I could proceed with bringing the final 2022 budget to council based on the decisions today. I don't think there's anything else we're waiting for. So I would hopefully look to do that for the February 15th meeting. So I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything further council we're waiting for before I proceeded on that.
I don't think so. And just for council's knowledge, the county at this point is coming in with 3.0 something %. There's room to cut a little bit of that because that big donation, or whatever you call it, grant that came in from the province, which we got some of. There's some discussion as whether we'll use that to go off the budget or whether we'll put it into a reserve. I have a feeling that part of it is going to be used. So that's just for information for us. Okay, so let's try this again. Can we have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Lambshead, Deputy Mayor Windover is our seconder. All in favor? Thank you. And I'm proud of you all. I think we've done very, very well. I think everybody's needs have been recognized and our concerns have been heard. So you're a good bunch.
And I hope my technology did not fail me today.